Welcome to This Week in Canadian EdTech Mindshare TV. I'm your host, Robert Mardlacci. We have a special sneak peek into the upcoming Mental Health Summit. We're going to explore how education can support mental health and well-being. Mindshare Learning is a proud media partner of the Mental Health Summit for championing the most important conversations in education. I'm thrilled to be joined by two incredible guests, Dr. Gina Cherkowski, a leader in education innovation with over 30 years of experience. She's the founder of Headwater Learning Foundation, where she integrates learning science, STEM, mental health research to build inclusive and thriving learning spaces, and is chair of the summit. Sunil Singh, an author, storyteller, and mathematics educator who brings his history, culture, and creativity into math education. He's delivered over 100 keynotes worldwide and is currently co-authoring a book with Gina on the connections between math, mental health, and curiosity. Welcome, Gina and Sunil. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Robert. So nice seeing you again.
Absolutely. Why this conversation now? The upcoming Mental Health Summit is all about supporting student well-being in schools. Why is this conversation more urgent than ever before? Gina, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. We're certainly seeing a large increase in students who have more complex needs, including with mental health, anxiety and depression. We're seeing increases in suicidal ideation. It's unprecedented, the rate of growth. And so we know that we need to help support our teachers to support students' needs, which are different and more complex now. And the big people, as Jody Carrington says, we need to take care of the big people so they can take care of the little people. And then with Sunil and I, we've known each other for a while. And he actually came to the summit last year and spoke a little bit about a personal story. And this year, him and his daughter are going to share that story in a keynote. And their story really highlights the reason why now, I believe. I'll turn it over to you now, Sunil.
Thank you. Sunil, over to you.
Sure, thank you. I agree with Gina that, time, the issues have always been there, but I think we're just more courageous to have these conversations. We're more open. There's sort of this collective swelling of people looking out for each other. And for me, the idea of mental health, it's a whole spectrum. At one end, which I will discuss with, about my daughter, is, severe anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, which we've already discussed. We're going to be talking about, and she's going to be talking about, which is, pretty amazing to speak about it, and also in front of a large audience. But I also want to, this is a sneak peek, but the keynote ends on a very positive, hopeful note, and that's the other end of the spectrum of mental health. Is what does positive mental health look like? What are the preventative things, like with medicine? What actions can we take in the classroom? And for me, specifically with mathematics, like math anxiety is almost sort of this inevitable encounter. And then we have these sort of interventions. That's not good medicine. Good medicine would be what can we do to avoid anxiety in the first place, or to mitigate it less likely to happen. So for me, being at this summit and speaking about it, especially, with Rhea, I think it's going to be a very powerful and sort of galvanizing thing for everyone who's a part of it and is in attendance.
Fascinating. Absolutely. Let's talk about the role of belonging in education. Gina, you emphasize that belonging is key to both individual success and community resiliency. How can schools create spaces where every student feels they are valued and included?
Such a great question and such an important point. We know that belonging is one of the number one reasons why students struggle with their mental health and even their self-confidence and their social emotional skills. So fitting in isn't necessarily belonging. Fitting in often can be changing your identity to belong to a group, but true authentic belonging means being who you are and being welcomed in that space and feeling like you do in fact belong to that community. This is something that I actually researched in my dissertation many years ago when I did looked at a math classroom for a whole year and looked at how students interacted, engaged, and belonged in their mathematical conversations and or in the learning in the classroom. But I also looked at the social and cultural capital that influenced belonging. I think this is a key message that we need to create spaces where all kids can be seen as who they are and can contribute and participate in a way that's meaningful. So how do we do that? We do that by really getting to know our kids, by focusing on relationship building, by teaching the social emotional skills and capacities and the pro-social skills to our kiddos so that they're cultivating that sense of belonging amongst themselves. But obviously, the teacher as well, supporting the teacher with that kind of work, because it does take work to create that culture in a classroom. And it's not one thing, one time, it's sustained over time. We need schools of belonging, classrooms of belonging, and communities where we belong.
Right. Well said, Gina. Thank you for that. Sunil, expand on how mathematics can be taught as a humanizing experience rather than rigid discipline.
Well, that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad we can discuss this. And there's a great quote about belonging, which I wish I could get the right attribution, but it's so true. Like not every kid comes to school wanting to learn, but every kid comes to school wanting to belong.
Mhm.
You
Well
know,
said.
so, and it wasn't me that said it. So
No,
there
but
was somebody else, and I wish I want to, it didn't come from me, but it just resonated with me because it's so simple and it's so truthful. So we have to attend to belonging. And so what does belonging look like in a mathematics classroom? And, we talked about the humanizing element, and Gina talked about, all students come in whole, regardless of the experience, regardless of their socioeconomic background, regardless of the challenge they've had. This is their whole story. And it's important that their whole story be allowed to enter a classroom, period. But in mathematics, we look at these sort of very external metrics like, are you good at math? And, are you meeting expectations? That's not necessarily going to create belonging. Belonging is do you have an identity with mathematics? Does your personal story match somewhere with mathematics that I want to belong to mathematics? Because once you feel like you belong, all those sort of metrics and measures of success that we have in school, they're going to take care of itself. But you could actually have those same results, and the belonging was never there. It was never an internal vector for learning. And I think that's what belonging and identity in mathematics is that you don't feel alienation. You feel belonging right from the get-go. So that starts in elementary school, and the idea of curiosity. All kids are curious about all their subjects, mathematics, patterning, it's all there, and we just have to really nurture that curiosity more and attend to the student voice if we're going to um, create a sort of longer sense of belonging through school.
thank you for that, Sunil. Let's stay with you for a moment around math, mental health, and the fear factor. I know I had that fear factor as my kids, and now they're CPAs and investment bankers, so you can overcome it. You
Yeah.
talked a lot about how math is often seen as intimidating rather than
Mhm.
inspiring. How does math anxiety connect to broader mental health challenges in education? And what is the role of the teacher in all of this?
There's a lot there to think
Unpack.
about. You know, we don't know how many students we lose in terms of what they could offer the world with their thinking mathematically because of just the way that they feel intimidated and they suffer anxiety. Um, and that will create a lot of energy from students to mask their anxiety. And, one of the things, and this is a topic from the other day, is the gender, disparity of ability and confidence of girls globally in math. Even that girls who are very successful in mathematics feel less confident. So the mental health aspect of your mathematical experience is got to be front and center. It has to be front and center because if we have that idea accessible, positive mental health for all students, a lot of things that we think like we want students to succeed and do, is going to take care of itself. You can't have mental health as an appendage. It's got to be part of the circulatory system in our education system. So this summit is massive, and I think what it's going to do at the very bare minimum is to bring a heightened sense of awareness of how we have to educate our children, specifically regards to mathematics.
I feel compelled to share with you that one of my sons was on an IEP. He's a twin, and coincidentally, both became CPAs. His grade 8 teacher said to him, "You're not good at math. Take general math in grade 9." Fortunately, he was, I would say stubborn, but
Perfect.
persistent, inspired to succeed despite the negativity that turned a negative into a positive, and is now working on a CFA and an investment banker. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, that's exactly kind of my point, is that there was some advocacy there through himself, I'm sure through you. One of the things Ray and I talked about that really, I know that sometimes this makes me feel despondent, is she goes, she calls me Poppy. She goes, and she's not like, it's not like she's lucky to have a father who's a math teacher. She says, it's the empathy. It's like who's advocating for these students who are struggling because, maybe their parents don't have the background. They figure it's the student's fault, or you got to work harder. You got to pull up your bootstraps, all these things. They don't have the awareness or the bandwidth to consider there's other elements. And then maybe think, okay, you're not a math person because I wasn't good at math. And you share something like that, you automatically shut it down. So all these conversations, which we're not privy to, I know are happening and causing, this gulf between what our potential students could be and what they actually are. So again, I think a great thing which has happened in Ontario is that we've done de-streaming. So now that all kids who come into grade 9 and 10 now, regardless of the background, they get the same mathematics, which should have been there in the first place, because this demarcation of applied, academic, all that is the math, like for me, mathematics is filled with awe and wonder, and it's beautiful. All students should get a rich experience of mathematics. We some kids need maybe some sort of specific application, but we should have a kind of a survey or buffet of experiences. There's kids who love literature. They'd love to know the intersection of literature and mathematics, or science and mathematics. At this point, we should have been in like the second generation of interdisciplinary education. We're not. So these are all things which are tied in. If you do an interdisciplinary, you are going to address all the kids. If you address all the kids, there's going to be less of that sort of mental health tax. So a lot of spinning plates, a lot of it kind of intertwined, but I think we're having those good conversations now. Excellent.
I'm intrigued by your storytelling approach to reduce anxiety. Can you perhaps unpack that a little bit?
Sure. It's another great question. Because storytelling, I mean, it's inherent. It's part of every culture since the beginning of time. And for me, there's three sort of pillars, rings for storytelling. There's the story of myself, the story of teachers, there's the story of mathematics, and there's the story of the students. All three are interconnected, like the Borromean rings. You take one ring, the other two rings fall apart. So all three are needed. And it's a very disarming way to introduce storytelling, because we all have stories of, in general, but we all have stories with mathematics. And even if it is negative, it's filled with anxiety and even trauma, it's healthy to talk about that. And especially for me, the most powerful teachers are the ones who've actually had trauma themselves, because they have greater empathy for students because of what they went through. So, to wear these scars in learning mathematics, it's unfortunate that happened, but now we have to sort of, how can we use these experiences to make it positive for everyone? And I think the most natural way is to have students tell their stories after teachers tell theirs. So teachers
cool.
take the lead,
I love that.
tell your story, be honest, and let students give them a disarming space where they are free to talk about. And once they are free to talk about, you set up that disarming space to learn. So it all goes back to mental health.
Well said. Gina, we're going to bring you back into the equation here. Pun intended. Tie this back into neurodiversity and learning science, explain how educators can create supportive math environments.
I think it's really important that to know that we all process information differently. And so there's always a debate of sort of traditional learning and new ways of learning. But what I think is what's important for that particular student is what's important. We know that we need a deep conceptual understanding of mathematical ideas. We know that we need to be fluent with our facts. In order to do that, different learners need to engage with math in different ways. And it's really, really important that we understand the neural pathways and the way students process information, neurodiverse kids in particular. What is their unique diversity? Because we always categorize. So, for example, we'll categorize students to have a math learning disability. The students that, quote unquote, have the math learning disability, we often are taught as teachers that they may need more white space, more time to do the answers, less questions so that they can have more time, and they may need manipulatives, give them manipulatives, have pictures. I would like teachers to say, what kind of math learning disability does this child have? We know there's actually different kinds of math learning disabilities. There's a true math learning disability that's more associated with a visual spatial deficit. So putting more manipulatives in pictures might actually be more difficult for that child to access mathematical learning. Whereas the other two forms of math learning disabilities are highly associated and correlated to reading and writing. And so there might be other interventions that would help support those learners that are different. I think it's really, really important that all kids know that they're bright and brilliant, and that just because they might have a diagnosis of ADHD or a math learning disability, that doesn't equate to what their potential is and that they're intelligent, because they are all intelligent. I know that research tells us kids that are diagnosed with a math learning disability as children grow up to be adults with more adult prescriptions for anxiety and depression over the course of their lifetime, and have other social indicators that are not as optimal as other people who don't have a math learning disability. I think we need to eradicate those things by creating classrooms where everyone can thrive. And that really requires a deep understanding of who the learners are in front of us and what they need in order. So when we're grouping kiddos in their groups, we're not just saying kids that maybe aren't fast with their math, because one indicator often in a classroom has been a traditional old-fashioned indicator has been speed of mathematics, but that doesn't tell us how we process information. So I say let's go a little further and ask why, and then design spaces where all kids can thrive based on new neuroscience.
Thank you for that insight. What does an inclusive classroom look like? If you could reimagine the way classrooms function today, what are 3 key changes, innovations that you would make learning to make learning more mentally healthy and inclusive?
I would have new technologies, assistive technologies for kids who need them. And that doesn't necessarily mean students who are diagnosed and need them. It might be other students learn optimally with some kind of new technology. So I think that should be accessible to us. Plus, our world is heading that way, and our kids need to be equipped with those tools. But that needs to be carefully done. So if you need voice to text or to understand something in a different way, that opportunity should be there for you. The second thing, I would love to see groupings in classrooms based on neural profiles, as opposed to based on outcomes, not on exam scores and or how quickly you perform or what you do, but let's group kids together in ways that if you process this way, this is how we're designing lessons for you, and this is how you'll thrive, and this is how we're grouping you to help one another, and then build a community of look left, look right. In a lot of math classrooms, you hear only 50% of us will be there after semester 1 or spring break or partway through. Instead, it's look left, look right. These are our resources. We're all going to be here in the end. So let's help each other get there, because by helping someone else and talking math out loud, you actually are cementing it in your own brain and helping yourself reify that information. So I think it's really important to create those groups and communities. So definitely technology, definitely group people and groups that's aligned to their neuro profile, and then have teachers as different roles, not stand and deliver, but to be able to go in and out of different their coaches, their mentors, their sometimes they're problem solving with the child and the children. So they're also the learner in the classroom with the students. They can make mistakes too. So it's this new space of, sometimes you might be explaining something, a little bit of, stand and deliver, and a little bit of coaching, a little bit of mentoring, a little bit of learning. Like, you should be fluid in how you're in a side of classroom, I think.
Amazing perspective. Sunil, do you want to chime in on your 3 key innovations, if you will?
You know what? I mean, I loved Gina's answers, and for me, I'll go macro. It's really simple, and I don't think we're doing enough of it. And I think we need to listen to our students. Like, we talk about student voice and all that, but do our classrooms actually have student voice, like in terms of what they're learning, how they're learning? Are you listening to me? Because if that's not set up, then we're not going to get to where we need to. For me, student voice is really important. And even I'll give you a very specific example. Because mathematics, if we go back to the history and storytelling of it, and I'll weave it all in. It's a story of a slow failure. That's really what the story is. And Gina talked about, sometimes we mentor like speed, success, and all that. So we're teaching mathematics with the false narrative. It's never been about speed. It's been about historic failure. Like really, like if you monitored everybody who did mathematics from the beginning of time, it's been just failure, spectacular failure. But why would somebody persist? Because of the curiosity element. So kids don't mind, I think, failing. It's just they don't like to be sort of like bored or embarrassed. So have student voice in the classroom, have rich content, tell the story of mathematics so that, yeah, it's okay to be confused. You are a mathematician. If you're confused, you don't know what's going on. If you're perplexed, you're a mathematician. That's exactly how we learn mathematics. But kids are not told that story. They suffer anxiety. They think they're not smart. So tell the true story of mathematics, the history of it. Have students have voices so they can feel they're part of the history. And that, to me, is plus what Gina's
brilliant. Yeah, paint the picture. Math is all around us.
It is.
Right? We're surrounded by math.
Yeah.
Whether it's architecture or, the food we eat and the measurements, like you can relate it. It's so relatable to every aspect in our lives. I'm fascinated by it.
It's, you just talked about it's all around us. And, I mean, imagine the first people that looked up at the stars. 2 mathematical questions they must have asked is how far are they away and how many are there? Like we were born to be curious. We were born to seek answers that had mathematics in them. It's part of our DNA. And kids somehow through our system, think, well, some people are math people, they're more inclined, or somebody's gifted and all that. I'm sure a small percentage of anything is gifted at any particular thing. But in terms of high-level mathematics, I'm going to tell you right now, every student that has walked into a classroom is capable of doing high-level mathematics. And even the ones who are neurodiverse, because, there's something called, flow, the psychology of optimal experience. So if you match the skills those kids have with the right challenges, they're going to be in flow. They're going to maximize their experience. So again, I think it's Gina's wonderful answers and some of the things I talked about. That's how you create future-looking classrooms.
Well, awesome. Let's shift gears a little bit and not to give away all the insight on the content here, let's talk about the Mental Health Summit itself and what to expect. Gina, if you want to perhaps chime in and share a little bit about the keynotes and timing of it. It's coming up very soon in a very appropriate environment that's going to inspire well-being, and being in the outdoors is very conducive in Banff.
Yeah, it's actually going to be, I think, pretty epic. Not only are we coming together to learn with a bunch of amazing speakers, including Sunil, as one of our keynotes and some amazing other keynotes, we have tons of feature speakers and impact session speakers. But we also, like you said, have events and activities for folks to participate in. One I'm really excited about is chapters and cheers. So you can grab a glass of wine, meet with your favorite author, talk about their perspective on mental health or well-being and the impact it has on the classroom or general well-being in leadership and education, and just mingle, get to know each other, make deep connections. Hopefully those connections will last far beyond the summit, and we're actually creating this sustainable movement. That's the goal.
You hit on a really important point that we talk about a lot, and I'm going to be writing about it in my book on the future work and learning in an AI inspired world, is human connection. How important is human connection, particularly post-COVID, as an educator?
I think it's key to everything. Teachers are so busy. Sometimes I remember you want to connect with the teachers down the hall and all of the things, but you're always in a panic and in a hurry. And our kiddos are the same. There's so much going on now. And with technology and or social media, I should say, at their fingertips 24/7, they're constantly thinking of that kind of connection, but the actual authentic face-to-face human connection is what we need. We heard from Dr. Jody Carrington, 72% less eye contact in society today, and that eye contact is actually wiring our brains for all other, like not just human connection, but for so many other things. We need our brains to be well and healthy so we can optimally learn, optimally engage and participate. I think connection is the big thing. Even our leaders, it's tough times to be a leader in education right now. And we have a leadership panel where many leaders are going to share their perspective, what they're doing in their district. And my hope is other folks can come in and say great things that they're doing, challenges that they have, so that we're building that connection for leaders as well as for educators and folks in the mental health world. But I think connection is the root of all.
Sunil?
Well, yeah, I mean,
human connection.
Absolutely. I mean, so the two sort of fields I work in, mathematics and music. I wrote a book on music, and both the parallels are there. They both serve as a conduit to deep human connection. It's not human connection; it's deep human connection. And I think the Rachel Butzman, who's got a wonderful keynote, TED Talk, 2010. She said it best. She said this in 2010, and she said 25 years ago, from 2010, which had been 1985. She said we met people to do new business. Now we do business to meet new people, and that was in 2010. So the end game now, for everything that we do, is to meet other humans. Like that's how we do anything. I mean, mathematics or anything, a collaboration. There's a social endpoint, to everything, and the awe and wonder, like who are we? Shared experiences, not just shared positive experiences, but shared negative experiences. And that's one of the things which I think is going to be amazing about this summit, is that it's going to allow for like the whole sphere of the human experience to be shared, not just like the positive and all the good things and all the sort of Instagram post kind of way that we see the world, but some of the sort of warts and boils that we all have that makes us human. So connection.
There's certainly a lot to unpack when you talk about human connection, and it can be easily misunderstood, can it?
It can be, but the kind of connection I'm talking about the one that I've experienced through mathematics and music, is a deep one. It's one which is sort of, it lasts. It's not transient. It's not like I just met you and yeah, we'll exchange contact information. Everyone who have experienced in terms of mathematics and music, brought the content brought together. But what is keeping us to go like so connecting is that we had that moment, and I think it's how vulnerable do you want to be? How much do you want to share? And sometimes someone does something, and okay, I can share my story. That happens all the time. Like someone came forward now, and now we're going to have this sort of collection of people under the umbrella of a mental health summit, where you're in a safe space to share anything about yourself.
Fascinating. Gina, let's touch on this garden, bringing the outdoors inside in the way of a garden from Vireo. Luke won our startup challenge and from Vireo, and they're he's presenting, and they're a partner of yours. So you've got an interesting promotion happening as part of this.
Yeah, one lucky attendee is actually going to win a hydroponic system for their school. We know that plants and getting out in nature has huge beneficial results, like for how we think, breathe, and interconnect with the world around us. It's rejuvenating, it's restorative. So we're really excited to be giving this away at the summit. Actually, people can do a certified forest bathing activity or else an outdoor tree play activity. But this is part of that theme where, bringing nature into the classroom so that we can have a little bit of the outdoors indoors sometimes. So I love this opportunity, and I'm really excited to hear more from Luke. And then the funny part is, this is how you and Sunil are connected as well through Vireo. So through Luke and Vireo.
That's right. It's that human connection that we come back to.
There you go.
Well, listen, this has been amazing. But before we wrap up, I want to touch on the book, your book, Math, Mental Health, and Curiosity, that you're co-authoring together, the curious case of mathematics, mental health, and curiosity. That's packed with a lot of insight and curiosity and, obviously expertise. What inspired this project, and what impact do you hope this has? Sunil?
Well, Gina was the one who reached out to me years ago about collaborating on something. So something started marinating, like a slow simmer. We didn't know what it was going to be, the collaboration, and it's all about timing. The birth of something, and the collaboration is turning out to be and will be a book, and it's right in the perfect cross section of our interest, the idea of curiosity and mental health and mathematics. And we've had some meetings already in terms of, we have a book title and we've got some chapters and there's going to be stories, but at the core of it is curiosity. And I want to give a shout out to my sister who said this to me in the many conversations that we had about curiosity. She said that if you are curious, and let's talk about students, then it's a pretty good indicator you have positive mental health. Now, you can have positive mental health without it. I'm sure it's possible. But imagine schools and classrooms filled with curious minds, and not just in the elementary grades, which we know it exists, but the whole K to 12, K to 14, 15, 20, create a lifetime experience. Imagine being curious, and imagine being curious about mathematics and the positive impact that could have on mental health for individuals, but as a society. So I think that's some of the things we're going to explore.
Exciting. Gina?
Yeah, I think that's, Sunil said it so nicely, but really, mathematics for some people is associated with negative feelings, and we want to see if we can shift the landscape and help all people see themselves in mathematics and leverage curiosity as a lens and a way in.
Perfect. Yes.
Amazing. Final thoughts.
Sunil and I have one more collaboration. It's a
Yeah, go ahead.
It's a global math summit.
Is this an official announcement? Is this the first time it's being mentioned? Is this breaking news?
Yeah, I think it's the first time it's been officially mentioned. I'll let Gina keep going. Sorry.
Let's hear it.
Well, I mean, it's Sunil's brainchild, and he's put a lot of work into it. I'm honored to be just a small part of helping. But he's getting together some big thinkers in math education, mathematics, and in education from all different perspectives to get together in Italy to discuss mathematics and to really dig into humanizing math. Sunil, feel free to take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I love seeing Robert smile because he saw Italy. I mean, this has been under the radar for, almost 2 years or even more than that. It's myself and Amy Alsnauer, who's in Chicago, and she's the author of the children's book, The Boy Who Dreamed of Infinity. And, I won't give you the whole story, that'll take too long, but I'll just surf off of what Gina just said. So this September, there's going to be the first Global Math Summit. This will be a yearly event. There's already, plans of it could be in Rome or Milan, or could come to North America. But this first Global Math Summit is going to address a lot of things that we talked about. And it's inviting educators from all over the world. We have gender balance, geographic balance, cultural, racial balance, but also, as Gina intimated, we have an experienced job balance. So we have classroom teachers. We have administrators who don't have a math background. We have CEOs of small startups. We have university professors. We have well-known people like Po Shen Lo, who's the coach of the U.S. Olympiad math team, which has been successful, winning a couple of gold medals at least the last couple of years. And it's really to come together globally to address some of the issues that we talked about, but to really celebrate mathematics and doing mathematics, and that it's accessible for everybody. And then what will come out of that, we don't know, but we want it to be accessible, scalable, and equitable, that everybody has an opportunity to learn mathematics. And that's what the initial summit's going to be about. How do we create a different world, a different space for everyone to enjoy mathematics like, the three of us have. And so the website will be launched in about a couple of weeks before the Mental Health Summit, and more information about it will be there. But I'm glad Gina brought it up because that's it's very
well, and so am I, being of Italian descent.
I know.
We're just down the highway from Rome, so I'd be happy to be a media partner for you, and perhaps a translator too. Parlo Italiano, so
I'm gonna keep you in mind, Robert. I'm being serious.
Grateful for that. Well, final thoughts on the Mental Health Summit that is just under a month away, actually. April 11th and 12th.
Yeah.
Are the dates?
I mean, I'll just keep it simple. Really excited. I mean, it's around the corner. It's in Banff. I'm already anticipating the connections that'll be made, the stories that'll be shared throughout the, 2 days, 2.5 days, if you include the welcome reception on Thursday night. I don't know what the outcomes will be, but I know they're going to be powerful and long lasting. So yeah, super excited.
Gina.
I just want to end by saying thank you so much, Robert, for being a champion of this event. You were there last year, and we're happy you're coming back this year and having these important conversations. I think it's not easy to have conversations around mental health. We're reducing the stigma and we're creating long-lasting impact, like Sunil said. So thank you both for your time today. Thank you for your vulnerability, Sunil, and for bringing your daughter and telling your story. There's power in stories, like you say. So I'm just gratitude to you both.
With that, thank you for a rich and inspiring conversation. Dr. Gina Cherkowski and Sunil Singh are doing incredible work shaping the future of education. And a big thank you to our team at Mindshare. We're a proud media partner of the Mental Health Summit for continuing to support this innovation in education. Don't forget to join us at the Mental Health Summit to take a deeper dive into these critical topics. And until next time, my name is Robert Merdlacci. Stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.